POV, you spoke to the police officer in a tone that she did not like. Anyways, now that I've offended like 4% of my viewer base, let's begin with the video. Now before we continue this video, full disclosure, I was DM'd via Instagram by Taiwan Gun if I wanted to do a video on their new collection of 8Fields laser cut products. And if you ask me if I want free gear, I'm obviously gonna say yes, right? So take everything I say with a grain of salt. However, I did not get any money or any kind of expectations set by them on what kind of content I should do with this gear. Anyways, disclaimer over. I took a quick look at the entire collection that they have from the new 8Fields laser cut line and quickly decided that I wanted to do a chest rig setup. Now, before we get into the chest rig setup, I quickly want to mention that the laser cut line from 8Fields, while having some more FUD looking gear like the plate carriers, actually have a lot of cool gear for really cheap. Like you can get pouches on there for like $2 a pop, which is insane, especially considering the quality that we're about to go into. I obviously asked my Discord members again what type of stuff they want to know about this chest rig, and they gave me some interesting points. So the main points were stability of the chest rig / comfort, and also how adjustable it is to different body types. They also wanted to know how scalable it is in terms of pouches and mag capacity, and also if you could mount like a backpack or like a little assault pack on the back directly via straps. So yeah, these are the points that we're covering today. Let's quickly go over the chest rig itself. So right here's the chest rig. It comes with a main section of MOLLE in the middle here, where you can mount a triple rifle mag placard or a double stack rifle mag placard. And on the sides, it has these 3-row MOLLE wings on both sides. And on the back, it has a little Velcro patch where you can add, for example, breathable padding for your chest rig, or as I did, for example, mount a dangler or any kind of other thing you want there. And in here you have a little admin pocket where you can, for example, obviously mount maps or stuff like that. The harness is a X harness, which a lot of people don't like, which I can understand, but comfort-wise, I really like it, but more on that later. Now let's quickly go over how I have set it up. Wake up babe, generic kit breakdown time. Starting with the most obvious stuff up front, I have 2 tourniquets down here, one with trauma shears and the other with a Sharpie for writing down the time of putting the tourniquet on. Then on the triple rifle mag placard, I usually keep my phone mount. Check out the video on that specific one if you want to, but otherwise I will just take it off to be even more slimmer to the ground. On my left hand side, I keep my saw pouch where I can stack up to 4 PMags in there, or basically any other miscellaneous stuff that I need. And also, as you can see, the tourniquet on the bottom. Moving from the left hand side right around to the right hand side, I have this huge GP pouch, like it's genuinely large. And in there I keep miscellaneous stuff like multi-tools, lighters, zip ties, extra batteries, camo paint, and a Ride in the Rain for the LARP experience. And I have all of that tied down with a bungee cord just so it doesn't rattle around as much and sits more flush to my body. The nice thing about this in specifics is that it comes with organizers already attached to it. While some people prefer to add their own GP organizers, I just prefer it that way in terms of a cheap rig because I don't have to buy any extra stuff. I just get it shipped, as you could say, ready to roll. Going upwards from there, we just have my lens wipe. This is always a useful attachment to your chest rig. And then on the right side next to it is my PTT, just mounted via bungee for now, attached to my Baofeng on the back side in a pouch that is attached to the MOLLE wing, which works surprisingly well and is also pretty comfortable, I might add. One thing that I did notice is that the knots of the bungees that hold down the mags were quite loose, as you can see here on the right hand bungee, which I fix on the most left bungee, which I have to do on the other ones as well. So this is just something to keep in mind to tighten down the knots on the bungee cord. But overall, I really like the mag pouches, and we'll go more into detail of the specific pouches later on. Now, let's talk about build quality. And I have to say this, I really didn't want to like this chest rig that much because it's cheap as f***. So if you do some basic math, the entire chest rig comes to a price of about $60. But let's talk about my personal opinion of all the different pouches. I'm a huge fan of the saw pouch. I really like it. It's a huge pouch with a general purpose. You can stuff anything in there. Mags, balaclavas, hats, really anything. And it's super nice. And with the tourniquet sleeve on the bottom, it also gives you, another space to mount the tourniquet without any extra stuff that you need to add it to your kit. What I really appreciate about it is that the pouches, regardless what pouches, all the pouches, hold their form even when they're empty. Because the pouches are made of a more, laminate style material, I'm not too much into that, so I can't really speak on that, so take everything I say with a grain of salt. The material is quite stiff, and as you can see, it's completely empty, but holds its shape pretty much fine, which is really nice for reinserting stuff or, working this one-handed with the rifle in the other hand. What this also allows is, and this brings me to the next product, the triple rifle mag placard. I really like the triple rifle mag placard because it's made of the same material, and even though there's no kydex insert in here, it's really easy to take them out and reinsert them again one-handed without any problems because they hold their shape so well. And in my opinion, I like them more than the K-Tar flap from Faro, because the Faro, while having a kydex insert, is super stiff and not allowing any movement to, for example, clear a foul mount on the top. But this thing, while obviously not having a kydex insert, thereby requiring some kind of retention bungee, allows you to pull them a little bit more to the side or outwards a little bit more, which I can really appreciate. The next thing that I really like from the entire laser cut line from 8Fields are the danglers. They have these universal danglers that I have for my tourniquet, but they also have a molly dangler with the molly that you can use to, for example, mount a mag pouch, or for your knife underneath your cummerbund on your plate carrier. That only costs $2.80. The huge GP pouch is a little bit too large, at least in my opinion, for my taste, but it comes with organizers already installed, so you don't have to buy any Velcro organizers. Now, if you are a little bit more picky and choosy about how you set up your GP pouches, this might obviously annoy you, but if you're balling on a budget or just want to buy something and be done with it, this is a great choice, especially because it comes in a lot of different colors, and while it's very huge and therefore not something I would put on a plate carrier, for this type of chest rig setup, it definitely works very well. The radio pouch is also fine. It's a little bit too big for a bow thing, I think at least, but it would still hold it probably. But it can go all the way up to a PRC 125 or whatever they're called, or bigger radios, for example, also my UV32. The chest rig itself is also okay, especially the molly spaces on there. The only thing that I don't like about the chest rig is the harness. Number one, it's a X harness. This is really uncomfortable in terms of getting into it, but however, once you're in a X harness, it's, at least in my opinion, really comfy. However, the stitching on the X harness is kind of meh at best, but if you yourself know how to stitch or know somebody that knows how to stitch, you can just do that or let them do that for you and kind of reinforce the stitching on there if you want to keep the X harness. What I will do in the future with this rig, we'll discuss later. Now, let's talk about compatibility. The chest rig itself is compatible with most standard harnesses that use buckle-up systems for, mounting. For example, Hail Strategic, the Airlight harness from Cry, or any other chest rig system. And you can also mount a backpack to that via straps, as can be seen with the Heli Strategic flat pack or assault pack, whatever it's called. So in that case, you can use it with a wide variety of gear. However, sadly, you cannot use it with a Velcro placard since it doesn't have a Velcro space on the front, only molly. But what I find nice about it is that it has the Velcro space on the back, which allows for danglers, tourniquet mounts, and also these radioing pouches to be used, which I like more than standard pouches, just put on the back, because that sits a little bit more flatter and is a little bit more comfortable than, a pouch with, edges pushing into your skin. However, I do want my radio on my inside, because that way it doesn't flap around on the outside, and I also don't risk it being broken by, hitting a stone or something. Because my body and the chest rig itself is soft. The ground with a stone isn't, right? Now, let's talk about my personal experience with this rig. I did some LARPing with it recently. I haven't gone to a real Muslim event or anything like that with it. However, I already have some experience regarding this rig. As I said before, I really didn't want to like this rig that much, but it has grown on me, especially considering the $60 total price point for all of the stuff that it's on. In terms of comfort, I like how the X harness, spreads the weight on your body and tightens the rig to your body. However, if you know anything about chest rig harnesses, getting into an X harness is like trying to take off a too tight, sweaty shirt after a gym session with no one to help you, but in reverse. and just completely forget about doing that with a helmet or hat on. You're just gonna not do that, trust me, bro. But because the harness is so thin, it doesn't create any hotspots under a rock, unless obviously the thin material spins around and binds up on itself and creates a hotspot that way. But if you watch out for that, this thing is great for, using with a ruck. Speaking of rucking, when you do actually do ruck marches, or you're just sitting on position, not really expecting any contact, you might want some more comfort and breathability out of your chest rig. And that is super easily achieved by just loosening up the lower back strap of the chest rig, which works super simple and super fast, which I really like, because again, if you need breathability, you just loosen it up. But as soon as you need to be fast and you need this thing to sit tight to your body, it takes one little pull to the back and it's super tight again, and that is really nice in my opinion. Another nice added detail is the little Velcro organizers that they have on these straps, so any excess material can just be tied down so you don't have such a huge snagging hazard on yourself the entire time. It's pretty scalable. You can just run it with 3 mags on the front and use it as kind of a convert under the jacket grayman type chest rig. But you can also use it, bombed out with 2 huge GPs on the side, another pouch added via the dangler on the bottom, mag pouches on the inside of the wing, and the radio on the other side, and with stuff stuffed into the admin panel, and then a double stack triple mag placard on the front with a wide GP, which 8Fields also offers, which is kind of like these ferro, wide, long GPs on the front. You can have all the admin stuff and ammunition you want on there, which is, nice. But if you do it like me, you are kind of in the middle, you have a phone mount on the front. If you're interested in looking into a Strike 3D and a universal phone mount, check the link up here, I think. But as I said, you can add a lot of stuff to it, and in my experience, it distributes and handles the weight just fine. Now, I'm more of a fan of having the chest rig, a large ruck with my sleeping system and stuff, and then a little day pack on that ruck that I use on patrols. That when I get to position, I take off the huge ruck, maybe already set up my sleeping position, and then I have my little day pack with a little bit of water and a water bladder, some snacks, and maybe a change of socks and shirt, and some ammo on my back, with my chest rig just having my fighting and administrative stuff, and food, sustainment, all that stays in my backpack and my clothes. Or I have some people on my Discord server who like to have all of their stuff in a chest rig. I don't know why, but you could do that with this chest rig, no problem, with all the pouches that they offer, especially with how cheap the pouches are while still remaining a good quality. So let's finally go into how I have mine set up and why. I've already explained kind of my system of, donning and doffing gear depending on in what stage of the operation you are in. But let's actually get into, my general use case for all the pouches. With my triple rifle mag on the front, I stay relatively low to the ground when going prone, even with a phone mount, compared to, a double stack. However, because of the large saw pouch on my left, I can refeed 4 magazines into these empty pouches when I spent those magazines, whilst also giving me the possibility to retain my empty magazines in said saw pouch. But if I don't want to do that, I can just mount a 10-speed style dump pouch on the inside of one of the molly wings and have a dedicated pouch for spent magazines. With the GP on the right, I carry all the miscellaneous stuff, all the stuff that I need, and some multi-tools. In the little admin pocket that I've shown you earlier, I would probably put in maps or any kind of, orders or stuff like that I need to write down, or just extra medical. Speaking of medical, my medical stuff would go into my fanny pack, but you could also just add a roll one to the chest rig or a little IFAK mounted via molly, again on the inside of the wing. You can really get creative here. And that way I've created a rig that allows me to get low to the ground when going into prone, and also allows me to go into alternate shooting positions while still allowing me to carry 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 total magazines, which is more than enough for a milsim, especially considering that I have more magazines in my day pack / ruck in the back. Now, what do I plan to do with this rig? Well, first of all, I want to replace the harness because I really dig the design of the Cry Airlight harness. I'll probably get a replica either from Tactical Raiders or Pewtech there in green and see how I like that because of the breathability and padding, and also because the X harness is just horrible to get into. And I will probably also utilize the Velcro pad on the inside to add some breathable padding, for example from Heli Strategic on the inside, just increase the comfort of the rig. Now, let's come to a conclusion. Not just about the chest rig, but about the entire 8Fields lineup of laser cut stuff. 8Fields is known for cheap quality gear. My account, most of my content orientates itself towards beginners or starters in airsoft, or people who do not want to spend 1,000 bucks on a plate carrier setup. You can already see how this is a good mix. However, I was skeptical at first, because for me, 8Fields was a brand that produces kind of bad pouches with bad stitching and bad overall thinking put into it. But I was genuinely surprised at how good this chest rig is. You know, with the mag pouches, the saw pouch, the danglers, either the Molly dangler or the universal dangler that I have with my tourniquet. All of the stuff is so good and so well thought out. I was really surprised, especially because the pouches cost sub 10 bucks. So, should you buy 8Fields gear? Well, their multicam isn't real, but it looks really good in my opinion. But for example, if you have a solid color kit, go for it, no complaints there. And for example, if you're looking for these Molly or, you know, multifunctional danglers or wings, really consider 8Fields, because especially if you're in Europe, you get way faster shipping than AliExpress and way cheaper prices than, you know, I guess actual brands, which you don't really need for these small little things, especially for airsoft. So to conclude this already way too long video, should you buy gear from 8Fields? Probably yes, especially if you're looking for cheap gear or you want to test a theory you have about a certain kit setup, but don't want to spend like 300 bucks on a airsoft chest rig setup. If you just ignore the chest rig and plate carriers, I really like their pouches. However, again, the $11 chest rig is also pretty impressive in terms of quality, and for airsoft it's more than enough. But I want to clarify, I'm not saying that, bro, this is better than Cry, you don't need Cry. Not like my, you know, clothes video, check it out if you want. All I'm saying is that this is good for airsoft. It's really cheap gear. I wouldn't trust this in a war zone, okay? But for airsoft, this is more than enough, and it really surprised me to how much the quality of 8Fields has improved. Okay, back to the video. Join my Discord server, follow me on Instagram and also on TikTok if you want to. However, I don't post a lot of good stuff on there. And until we see each other next time, LARP.